Hi there. I am going to start with introducing myself. This is the first video in a series of videos that will be released every other week. So I'm Sarah. I'm a registered dietitian and artist. And if you're curious to find out if a lack of self-love is turning up the volume on your food noise, then stay tuned, because we're going to work through a series of pages in the Surfing the Urge workbook that's going to help you address food noise and learn how to surf food urges like a champ. So in today's video, we are going to do a color along. So if you've already purchased your book, go ahead and grab it in your coloring utensils. If not, pause the video, check the box below, click on the link, which will take you to Amazon. Go ahead and purchase yourself a book. We are going to be coloring page 206 and addressing concepts of self-love. Oh, and this is Hestia. She's come to join too. Before we dive into the concept of food noise and self-love, I do want to say that food noise can have different roots, and self-love is definitely not the only cause of food noise. Oftentimes food noise has its roots in some sort of physiological imbalance in the body. So if you are experiencing a lot of food cravings, a lot of unwanted food chatter, a lot of obsessive thoughts, and just sort of like constant hunger, even though you've eaten, all the things we would sort of put into that category of food noise, definitely connect with a medical provider, get some lab work done, address it with a professional, because you don't want to gloss over some sort of physiological imbalance that could be occurring, okay? So as you begin to color the coloring book, I am going to talk to you about the concept of self-love and food noise. And I do like to reframe the concept of self-love a little bit, in the sense that I do like to call it, I love myself. And I'll refer to self-love and I love myself, those terms, interchangeably. But I do just want to point out that we are an individual, we are a being that deserves love. And love is more than just a feeling. It is an act of care, kindness, and has a variety of different features that we will address. So I just want you to reflect on how you love yourself as we go through this coloring process. For today's creative journey work, you're going to be coloring everything on page 206 except for the hearts. Save those for last, because there's going to be a little bit of homework and some creative processing that we're going to leave to the very end. All right, let's get started. As I see it, the actions of self-love are: 1. Accepting yourself as you are. This doesn't mean that there may not be things you want to change, but you're willing to accept them as is, here and now, as reality. By seeing reality as it is, without judgment, it allows us the power to accept the choices we really have, moment to moment. How this relates to food noise is that when we beat ourselves up for eating because we are stressed, all this criticism does is shunt us back into a cycle where we use food to escape the inner critic, essentially cranking up the volume on the food noise. The important thing is to have a willingness to accept ourselves without judgment and be willing to change just one thing. All change starts with one step. Number 2, Another act of self-love is seeing your needs as equally as important as those of others. So if you're always giving to others and not giving to yourself, often the food noise becomes, I deserve this, I earned this. And when we go a little bit deeper, it's because that's the last and only thing you've really let yourself enjoy. It really is important to reward yourself with non-food based items and experiences, so food doesn't become your one and only go-to. Number 3, setting boundaries with yourself and others. And I'm going to follow that up by saying then honoring them is a good way to build self-trust and self-respect, and ultimately self-love. We all have to know when to say yes and when to say no, and that's to ourselves as well as others. So the lack of an ability to say yes and no often drives food noise up because we overly say no to pleasing foods and end up indulging in them consequently. Also, on the flip side, we can get caught up in not setting boundaries with pleasing foods and overindulging in them. And it is hard to strike that balance, honestly. This can also show up when we don't set boundaries with others. Then we end up feeling depleted and in the habit of leaning into food to make us feel better or to prop up our depleted energy. Here, I tend to think about like sugar sweetened items or not taking the time to feed yourself healthfully and always making the meal something quick and easy like fast food, because that is all the time you've allowed yourself for nourishment. All right, number 4, forgive yourself and others. All right, this one honestly is really tough because forgiveness means letting go of hurtful feelings, memories, and injustices. This is so important though, because once you realize that you love yourself enough to let go of hurts, whether they be from yourself or another, the angry inner tyrant you are trying to avoid by eating goes away, and you will no longer be filled with guilt and shame eating habits or trying to stuff unvalidated feelings down that are too uncomfortable to feel. Number 5, be compassionate and kind to yourself and others. The more compassionate we are with others and the less judgmental, it actually helps us to feel less judgmental towards ourselves. So rather than having a constant background dialogue that is full of judgment, we end up having one of compassion. Ultimately, this will prevent us from avoiding or stuffing our feelings with food, or even intentionally eating in a way that is harmful because of self-loathing. And number 6, show appreciation for yourself by providing yourself with nurturing. Reward yourself with acts of loving kindness and appreciation rather than with food. And I'm just going to say that statement one more time because it's a mouthful and it has a powerful punch. Reward yourself with acts of loving kindness and appreciation rather than with food. And you see yourself as worth nurturing and with quality nutrition instead of foods you call junk. When we nurture ourselves, we cease to harm ourselves by neglecting our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual needs. So find some creative ways to show appreciation for everything that you put into life. Alright, so you've colored your image and now you have blank hearts. So eventually you will be coloring those hearts in, but let's get started with labeling them. So you'll label one about acceptance. The next one is going to be seeing your needs as equally as valuable as another's. Another one will be related to setting boundaries. And you can label these whatever you like. I'm just giving you kind of the general framework. The other one's going to be related to forgiveness, showing compassion to yourself and others. And then lastly, showing appreciation or nurturing, something in that category. So now that you have all of your hearts labeled, what I want you to do for your homework is take some time coloring the hearts in. And as you reflect on the concepts related to that act of self-love, I want you to think on the opposite. So what's the opposite end of the spectrum? When I'm not compassionate to myself, I fill in the blank. And as you can see on the image, I've listed different things that are sort of my opposites, if you will. The end result of me not showing love to myself. Okay? So if you've enjoyed this video, of course, please click the subscribe button and you'll be notified every other week when I release another video. And if you'd like to learn more about how to work with me, or you're curious about why I even created this workbook and the work that I'm doing, there's a link down below to a video I've made about the origin story. So I hope to see you again, and you have a good day.